And so duality, as I have said, is based on the electromagnetic phenomena of light. Duality. And this cosmos is simply the expression of that, the varied expression of that light. These various things which you see, but doesn't seem possible, this solid pulpit, and all the things, automobiles, this church, this microphone, everything, is simply made from that one great consciousness of God, the first manifestation of which is that electromagnetic force of light. Light, L-I-G-H-T. In the beginning, God created light. First, the Spirit of God moved. That's the thought of God. Then, His thought produced light. And from that light, all things are made. Science is finding it out now, that everything can be proved to come from that one light. And so, the thing is that this varied experience we know as the cosmos is the different expressions of the light, but in that light, and this is the important thing, is the omniscience and the intelligence of God. So, you can see now, if you're going to perform miracles, what you've got to do. I'll come to it in a minute. Now, this light and the delusion. If you become one with this delusion, if you attach yourselves to this delusion, you have to obey the laws of delusion. Isn't that so? If coming up over that bridge I had forgotten all about God or wasn't trying to be in His consciousness, I'd have followed the laws of this delusion and we'd had a nice smash-up. No. But somehow, by the grace of God, a higher law worked, and I was guided not by outward laws, but by the higher law. And so, if we cling to the laws of this delusion, we will be governed by that. But if you cling to the higher law, you'll be governed by that higher law. Then you can produce miracles. And so that's just what the saints did. The saints have shown by their lives that in spite of this delusion in which they found themselves, in spite of that, in spite of being in the world, they lived beyond the world, above the world. And they have shown that instead of being governed by the laws of this life, with the necessities of life, and being governed by the laws of the paradoxes and the injustices of life, they rose above that, and they took a long-range view, and they were governed by the higher law of God's omniscience. They put their faith, they put the tremendous faith they had in eternal things, in the value of eternal things, not these worldly things. That's an important point. So likewise, self-realization will teach you how to contact the eternal things of life, that you may be guided not by worldly laws and outward laws, but by higher laws of God. And so miracles occur when you get out of this dream of God and are governed by higher laws. Now, the manifestations of electricity and gravity are known. They are known. Scientists know all about them. But how about the force itself? How about electricity and gravity itself? No. You have to know the sole operator if you want to know that. You have to rise above these trillions of manifestations in this life. If you want to know what electricity is, you've got to know the operator himself. You've got to know the omniscience of God. In that omniscience is the power that has made universe upon universe, but greatest of all, in that omniscience is His divine love. That's the greatest thing. Now, you have to know that. If you want to know how electricity works, you can. Follow the scientists. If you want to know what electricity is, what gravity is, what the power that holds the atom together is, then you've got to be one with that power which is the atom itself, which is the force which holds the atom together, which is the force in the atoms of light from which all things have come. And so, as I have been pointing out, you can see that we must get above outward things and know the sole operator. Know the man, or the one rather, who has made all this thing. We must know His omniscience and His love. And so I will hurry along and say this, that delusion and outward consciousness can be removed only by merging in the omniscience of God. How to do it? How to do it is the point. How to do it? by being in, going through, being one with, and passing through the divine eye at this point. That is the door. That is the door from what? From outward laws to inner laws on the omniscience of God. On this side of the door, what do you have? You have insecurity, paradoxes, injustices, uncertainty. On the other side, what do you have? You have the peace and the security of God, and you can then be subject only to God's law. That's why the saints say, one thing when they get beyond the door on the other side, the yogis, sail their consciousness into the omniscience of God. That's beautiful. Yogis sail their consciousness, float it into the omniscience of God. And in that omniscience, you are subject to the laws of God, which are just, and which are exact, and which are eternal, and which are not subject to duality. That's the important thing. Now going on a little further to just a little bit about creation. If we understand creation, remember the greatest miracle is creation. Creation is the greatest miracle. When you think about it, how from this one force of God's light, these things come with solidity and all that, it doesn't seem possible. But they have proved that the atoms, the light atoms, from which all things have come, are made of nothing but free electrons, or the light spoken of in Genesis. God created light. And there is a certain reason for that, which I'll tell you in a minute. Now, as regards creation, in the Spirit of God moved. In other words, God created things first in thought, in his thought. Then he condensed that thought into light.